Order. We have a quorum, Ms. Grew, Mr. Smith, myself, Bernard Parks as the chair. I'd like to go through the agenda on closed sessions, items 1, 2, and 3. I'm recused for the public record on number 3. On consent items, if we can concur on 4, 6, 7, 13, and we have a request from the CAO to continue 14. So we can go consent 4, 6, 7, and 13. Okay. And I'd just like on the on item 4, we approve that item, but we do need to ask the CAO and the clerk to get together to add into the report the full cost of this bonus program.
Weren't there a couple receive and file recommendations too?
Yeah, we're going to do 8 through 11 together.
Excuse me.
Yeah, we're going to, because those are all budget memos. And also on 13, if we could have in that, we approve the CEO recommendations, but we do need a status of what the FMS system replacement project and whether taking these funds from that replacement project is going to cause any concern. So we've been waiting for that status report for a while. So then we will go in closed session on items 1, 2, 3, come back on the remaining items, and we'll handle 8 through 11, which are all budget memos as one item. So we can go through this. You guys go to number 3 first.
Do you want to do 3 first? Okay.
Yeah, and then I'll come back.
Are we expecting?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
There is a council file related to this report. For the committee's information, we are working with there's a bridge widening project that will significantly impact the street services yard. And as such, Caltrans is willing to compensate us for the fact that we essentially won't be able to have use of that particular yard. We're working with Bureau of Engineering's their real estate division. They will be coming back to us, and we can report back to the Budget and Finance Committee. That's not a problem, on how much money we stand to get from Caltrans. That money would then be used to relocate Street Services Urban Forestry Division.
Okay, that's on item
That's not number 8.
8. Okay, but again, what you said verbally clarifies it, but it's not in the report. So if we can find a way to get
Sure.
that information, and then how we're going to address number 11, if it's a larger yard report that's forthcoming, then that would, I think, satisfy the maker of the motion.
Sure.
And then on the issue of the, let's see, the revitalization plan, that one is still kind of hanging, that we're going to be working with the Trust for Public Land. And then on, I guess that's 8, 8, I think. It's also a yard.
Mr. Chair, would you like us to clarify that? Then we can come back soon, 30 days, with that.
I'd like you to clarify it in the report.
Yes.
So when it goes forward,
Yes.
it answers more questions than we leave open.
Sure.
And then in there, if we can ask for 90 days, or where we can get some report back.
I was going to say, item 8, what we'll do, we'll provide the related council file to the clerk, so we can sort of receive and file our notice, but
Okay.
knowing that we will be reporting back as part of the other council file.
Okay.
For item 9, we'll ask for a 90-day, we'll come back in 90 days with a status on what we'll get with GSD, with the property, and some figures as far as what's needed to establish that neighborhood city hall. On item number 10, I'm sorry, I would probably recommend, since there's some things that need to happen, we need to have some of these organizations get established. We'd probably be good to ask for, we'll ask for a 90-day report back on once these organizations get formed. I think we were waiting for the corporation to be formed. Basically, this is the the LA River Revitalization Corporation. Since that isn't formed yet, we can report back in 90 days on status and what's happening there to keep, so that's quite a big project for the city. On item 11, we will basically report back on the larger issue about moving the yards, and
So
I'll
that 8
track
and
down
11
the council file.
Okay. So 8 and 11 are in the same council file, dealing with the yard.
They're related, yes.
Okay, all right. So we can get that clarity, I think it'd be helpful.
Okay.
Okay.
So we can move those 4 items with that clarity.
Okay. Okay, so that should take us to item number 12, which is a general services report, joint GSD controller report, and joint GSD information agency report relative to the supply management system, SMS, and a request for funding to extend the contract with Metaformers Incorporated through September 2008. The IT-GS Committee on December 18th recommended approval of the GSD ITA report recommendations. Now, there was a supplemental report that was released today. We'll make sure the clerk has that. The major change is that a reserve fund appropriation or loan will not be needed. Thus, we'd like to have the recommendations that are contained in the supplemental report be approved.
So they're just going to absorb that in their regular budget?
Basically, ITA has done a good job in negotiating with Oracle to cover the shortfall.
In addition, Sylvia Bergstrom from ITA. I'm joined with Randy Levin from ITA, Deborah Ramos from GSD, John Trevgoda from GSD, and Bill Lamb from the CIS Controller's Office. To answer your question, yes, additional funds were forgiven by Oracle, and in addition, General Services found additional funds in their prior year encumbrances, which they can release for this purpose. And that's how we made up the difference.
Okay, just give us a thumbnail on what the supplemental or the new report, how it
Absolutely.
differs from the original report.
Absolutely. The original report and the supplemental both have the same grand total, $1,081,000. but just the mix of funds to pay for it is different. Both of them show $99,000 as a check from Oracle. In the original report, we showed $502,000 we were hoping that Oracle would forgive. In the end, it turned out to be $375,000, but that was an up from what they had forgiven earlier. In addition, originally GSD had found $150,000 in encumbrances that they could use. Now they've got $377,000. That was through some great research that they did. And ITA still has the same $230,000 in prior year encumbrances. And we removed the $100,000 reserve fund request that was in the original report.
Okay. And so our task today is to move the new report of January 11th.
The supplemental, yes, basically the new report that came out today.
All right. Very good.
Just a question for the Controller's Office at ITA and the coordination with the FMIS system and how that's going to work with the new system that's coming on.
Yes, what we're doing together is figuring out how this is going to work in conjunction with this PeopleSoft system so that PeopleSoft interfaces into the FMIS system. So we're going to design this with this in mind. Whether or not we're ever going to replace this, I can't say, but at least what this does is gets us on a very, very current version and will put us in a very stable state and should leave us alone for quite a while to be able to go focus then on putting in the general ledger and the accounts receivable and the budgeting modules that we desperately need.
Part of our concern is that currently we're interfacing a new technology with an old technology. FMIS was implemented in 1987. As we go to a new technology for the financial system and a new technology for SMS, our expectation is that the interface will be simpler, that you won't have that technology bridge.
Say that again, I didn't hear the last sentence.
We won't have the technology bridge, the difference between, really generational differences in technology between the SMS and FMIS, once we have FMIS and SMS on relatively similar technologies.
So bottom line is we don't know if this will interface with the new FMIS.
It will.
It
We
will.
will design it to interface. It will interface with there. Yes.
Okay, so it will.
It's not an easy interface,
not an easy
but it will interface.
We still will have to design and pay for, basically to build the interface.
Okay. And is this the last contract amendment we see for this prior to the full implementation of the FMIS?
For this system, for the upgrade,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. Because we had one in February for about $2 million as well, correct? And did we not foresee this additional work, or was this a phase-in of something we needed to do?
In the original $2 million request was an effort with Metaformer's help to try out a module of the PeopleSoft code called Entry Event. That was a module that the city, through the help of the original integrators, chose not to use and instead put customizations in. So this $2 million contract allowed us to work with Metaformers to try out the delivered PeopleSoft code, and we discovered that it would really serve our needs much better than the custom code. So one of the things we're getting with this upgrade project is we're going to actually throw out some of that custom code and instead use the delivered PeopleSoft code. Being native to the product, it will work better, and we'll have fewer data integrity issues. We had a lot of data integrity issues this past year end, and we continue to have them because that custom code is still in there.
And this is until September of 2008,
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
And there's going to be no other costs that we could foresee
Well,
at this time?
We may have some with respect to, we have some audit issues with respect to the city's financials right now. We've done a contract amendment with our outside auditor for additional work out of concern, a potential qualified opinion because of SMS. We're supposed to get those results shortly. Plus, the problems with SMS won't be resolved until the 2009 fiscal year. So that means for the 2008 fiscal year, we will have similar issues. We will also have a new auditor on board, which will exacerbate the issues. So we still have a period of time that we're going to have to live with issues with SMS and FMIS.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll move that item. Thank you very much for renegotiating and finding those funds internally.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to item number 15, which is CEO report relative to the Young Women from Adversity to Resiliency Violence Intervention Program Grant Award, the Y Award. The Ad hoc Committee on Gang Violence and Youth Development on December 13th recommended approval of the CEO's recommendations. This item was also referred to the Personnel Committee.
No, I think we've seen this at a couple of committees. I would just like to say that thinking and contemplating for next year's budget, we really need to encourage you to find funds outside of the general fund to support this grant. Because I just don't believe we're going to have $400 and some odd thousand to support this as we've done in the last few years. So that's my only concern, that we look for either another grant or in some other way to fund that. Because I just think when we get into that budget process, whether if TUT doesn't pass, it's no way in the sense of getting this. I don't know if it's part of your 8% cut in your new budget, but it's going to be tough either way, and it just needs to start looking for that, because it just seems as though it's a great program, but I just don't know if we're going to have the money next year.
And I think you'll see what some of the things that I've started to do since I've been on board is really recreating those relationships with the outside organizations. Maybe there's a role for them to play as it relates to them administering the program, or even in terms of outside funding for us. So that is being taken in consideration. And then also the report that's being done by Abby Leapman will be completed tomorrow, and I think that will give us all a little more direction.
Let me ask you one thing also. The CEO has asked that your year-end evaluation be complete. Is that done?
That's completed, and that's been delivered to everyone's office on the committee. But if you need any extra ones, I'd be more than happy to bring you some.
And will the Abby Lehman report it'll come to council, or it goes to the commission, then the council, is that?
It goes to the commission and then to the council.
So I know some of the issues that we discussed.
Right, needed to be addressed through her report.
Are, kind of the role of the commission, and whether or not it should be an operating department operating this kind of, or are there other entities, kind of the same discussion we had last year in city attorney's office versus children, youth, and families, how we should look at that. So I think that's going to be a healthy discussion.
I think so.
Okay, we'll move that item. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to item 16, which is a city attorney and CEO report relative to requests for funding, additional appropriations for outside counsel and staffing.
We were going to do this on consent, but we hadn't spoken to Ms. Haley in so long that
I shouldn't be so popular. It's really unfortunate.
there were no cases that we needed to talk about. Let me just go through a couple of questions that you may remind us on, because we get this periodically. There's a number of times we've discussed what were some of the controls that the city attorney was putting in place along with the CAO to reduce the cost of outside counsel, and maybe you can refresh our memory on some of the things that are in place and what you're going to be doing during the rest of this fiscal year.
Okay, and I am pleased that we are working closely with the CEO and have a great working relationship, and on these reports, we've been vetting them there. But we, through our outside counsel committee now, any request for outside counsel first has to come to a committee that consists of some members of our office, including Mike Clayson's here to my left, and all of the branch chiefs, our chief deputy. And so every request for outside counsel comes first to that outside counsel committee to determine whether or not, in fact, we could handle the matter in-house. And we have, in fact, pulled some requests and sent them back to be handled in-house. But if that committee finds that the resources are not there, we do give approval either to go out then for request for proposal or to add funding. So every request for a new contract or for additional funding for a contract now has to first be approved internally before we even come to you.
And that's for the proprietaries also.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then another thing that's been critical that we found that has helped is to require budgets of the law firms. So now, after we've approved the use of outside counsel, we require the firm to submit a budget, and that projects usually at least out 6 months. And it's difficult, to project, particularly with litigation, what the costs are going to be, but we have that at least as a starting point, and we hold them to that. Each month, the firm must account for any overages. If they exceed their budget, they've got to explain the differential there, and that has really, the firms are getting the message now that we're really watching expenditures, and so that's been helpful as well.
Now, in your report, you comment that you found some funds that you were encumbered. How often do we go back and look at the funds we've allocated and determine if they are encumbered and we can get them released?
Actually, usually, we certainly did that in anticipation of our next request, because I'll tell you, there's another report that we will be filing shortly, unfortunately, but the need is there. And since we knew that we would be nearly depleting the UB allotment with the current request, we certainly look first to scrub the contracts, if you will, and also as cases are resolving. A couple of our employment cases, we had a great result, and the matters were dismissed on motion to dismiss or summary judgment. So those had already had money appropriated, so I know that's one of the contracts that we're not going to be able to revert the money for.
Okay. And then let me ask you on this expenditure of 1.5 pretty well exhausts what was budgeted.
Yes.
And this only takes us to January 2008.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if I read it properly, by the time we were expecting maybe another $3 million
That's
in
right.
funds needed by June.
Yes, and actually, that does not include Mayday, in any litigation that arises out of the,
These are cases that are already in the system,
that's right.
and or that we already are in some form of discovery or...
Yes, including some of the ones that are on the report today. See, unfortunately, we've kind of just been in a maintenance kind of position, and some of these cases are just, we're going to be breaking even now, so it's to maintain current lawsuits, and the workers' comp. Remember, we've now incorporated that, so it's also an amount that includes workers' comp, but unfortunately, again, that number does not include the needs that we know are going to be coming up for them.
Also, in your report, you reflect that, or is it just these cases that we're allocating money to amount to about $49 million in potential liability, or is that a larger number of cases that are in the system but we're not allocating money today?
No, just these.
Just the ones that we're allocating money,
Yes.
that's the potential?
Yeah.
Okay. And then your request for the positions, we're not dealing with that today, but is that strictly on the personnel side, or is that asking for positions for the larger litigation area? Is that just for personnel-related
Just for-
cases like
just
FSLA
and employment cases.
Okay.
And I strongly urge that I think that fiscally, it would be a wise decision to.
But now, is the expectation that if we get to that point and we're able to fund those, that some of these contracts would go by the wayside?
Probably
or-
not any of the existing ones. For one, the firms are already,
But we would be cutting into new cases.
absolutely. And the only reason we would even make that recommendation for in-house staffing is that we feel that these cases are not going away. You know, there seems to be a steady stream, so there will be more, it would appear.
Great. Let me just ask the CEO, when will you have an opportunity to look at the request for the additional positions?
Actually, we're looking at that now, and I think we're close to some resolution on some of the issues and so forth. So hopefully we will have a report out soon.
Okay. We'll move that item with the request, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that the 3-point-something million is smaller than you project. Let me just say, that's the last item.
Yes.
Okay, and let me just refresh my memory. We will not have a meeting on the 21st, and then on the 28th is the mid-year report.
The mid-year report, yes.
Storing up our energy.
Yeah.
Yes, you make sure you have a good lunch.
Break before the lockdown.
Well, I don't know, maybe you don't want a good lunch.
Now, financial status will be the 28th here.
Oh, 28th, and then...
Then February 4th is in the Valley to deal with, in primary item is the land use issue. That's the primary issue. Okay. Any other issues? No cards? We're adjourned.
You know,
Did you call?
at a
Get
college,
brain?
when you
I was talking to Mr. Green.
get a big donor, you endow a chair. We should have a Groberson chair. I noticed that it's still in here. We should have a Groberson chair in the city attorney's office. It's paid for by this lawsuit
Yeah.
that's gone on for 10 years.
Always right. and whether
Yeah,
it's all encompassed, but just to verify.
okay. Your office would have the
I
numbers.
thought you were giving us the day off. It is a day off, the 21st.
What's that?
I thought he was giving us the day off, the 21st.